If you've ever been to downtown Tampa, you may have seen the massive marquee out on Franklin Street with the city's name in dazzling lights. This story was produced by the students at St. Petersburg College in partnership with WEDU. This building houses one of the oldest theaters still standing, the Tampa Theatre, a passionately protected landmark that is keeping the art of grand cinema alive.
The theater opened in 1926. It was designed by a very sought-after architect named John Everson, who was sought after because he was building these fantastic movie palaces that created the illusion that you're in a Mediterranean courtyard at night. They were built to overwhelm the common man and woman who had never had access to opulence like this before. And it was wildly successful. But by the 1960s, the theater was seeing decline, and downtown was in decline. So the theater became endangered, and it was actually a plan to demolish this building by the early 70s. And then the community got involved, and brighter minds prevailed, and a deal was reached to have the city of Tampa step in and rescue this building, and then turn it over so that it could be operated as a nonprofit film and cultural center, and that's what we do today.
The fact that people back in the 70s were smart enough to see the value of something like that and to save it and preserve it enough to hand it off to our generation really says something about our community.
The first time I came into the Tampa Theater as a child, of course, I was wowed because there's stars on the ceiling and the birds in the lobby. Everything's beautiful and dark, and there's just a real sense of occasion when you come to an event here.
I was blown away by the Tampa Theater the first time I walked in the building, and I don't think that's any different than what happens to most people when they walk into this building for the first time.
When Everson created the idea of an atmospheric theater, he wanted to transport his guests to a different place and time. And 90 years later, we still want our guests to feel like they're being transported when they walk into Tampa Theater.
They back then drew pictures of this. They didn't put any notes, any dimensions on hardly anything. They gave it to a craftsman and said, make this. And they did.
It's really interesting when you work in a historic building to try to find the balance between modern day technology and making sure that your building is modern and also keeping that historic feeling. Tampa Theater is sometimes known as the old theater that shows old movies. Our primary program, the number one thing that we do, is new movies. When it comes to first-run films, is what some people might describe as art house films. Come Oscar time, come the Golden Globes, it's the movies that are getting nominated. We have 600 showtimes a year of various films and live performances and special events and tours and parties and fundraisers and everything else.
Got all these great cultural institutions, and Tampa Theater is right in the heart of it.
Back in 1926, when we opened, movies were still silent. So in those early days, we had no choice but to accompany the films with live musicians. And then we also had a mighty Wurlitzer theater organ.
Organists are sort of the unsung heroes here at Tampa Theater because they're all volunteer, and they show up, and 15 minutes before every single film screening, they come up through the stage and they perfume the air with music.
To play a pipe organ is much different than to play an electronic organ. You can feel it. You can feel the air, and it sounds silly, but you can feel the air moving, especially on the very deep notes. And once it gets you, it traps you. I think all of us organists feel the same way. That's why we're doing this. That's why we volunteer here, because this theater is here, and it's an opportunity for us to play.
The fact that we have our original Wurlitzer organ makes us one of the few theaters in the world that still has its original pipe organ and still is able to showcase it at almost every presentation we do.
I think the people that are involved with Tampa Theatre, whether they are volunteers or donors or members, they all get something out of it because they get this sense that they are helping in a very real way make Tampa and Tampa Theatre even more special than it is.
It's this historic building right in the middle of downtown, and it's been here for 90 years. To know that I'm supporting a building that's been here for that long feels very important to me, that we keep that going and that we don't let this building just fall down around its own ears.
They don't build buildings like Tampa Theatre anymore. So the thought that there used to be so many more movie palaces like this across the country that were just demolished is sad. It's really sad. The movie palace is a uniquely American style of architecture. It's part of our history, it's part of our culture.
And I think as people connect with the building and they come inside and they get involved, they realize that this is one of Tampa's greatest assets.
We've got 1,400 seats, so when you get in the room with 1,400 other people and you're all watching the same thing at the same time, there's just this really neat collective thing that happens.
It provides people not only that sense of place and pride about their community, but also gives them another artistic outlet and creative engine for them to tap into.
You don't want to lose it. You can't lose it.
Taking care of a building like this is a passion.
To have that love affair between the community and the institution that you work for is very special.
We know that we are taking care of something that came into existence long before any of us did, and something that is going to still be in existence long after all of us are gone.
And I'm really glad to be part of a community that's still supporting this building, still coming out to see the programming, and that this building is going to be here in another 90 years when it's my great-grandkids' turn.
For more information, visit tampatheatre.org.